I want to talk a little bit today about partner violence. It does go along with the reading in your textbook. So I wanted to take it a little bit deeper when we talk about partner violence. Many of you in your careers will work with victims of domestic violence, so it's very important to be as aware as possible. So the one thing I wanted to do was look up the DSM definitions for partner violence. The DSM has two separate categories. The first one is probably the one we think of most commonly. Physical violence, where someone's kicking, hitting, slapping, pulling hair, punching, any sort of physical harm to the victim. Sexual violence is when a partner will use physical force or coercion to force a partner into either a sexual act against her will, his or her will, whether or not the act is completed. So if someone even attempts to force a sexual act onto another person, then that is considered sexual violence. Other forms of adult maltreatment and neglect that I wanted to look and see what the DSM had. Spouse or partner neglect, any egregious act or omission, and I think that's important, the omission part, by one partner that deprives a dependent partner of basic needs. So this can be any sort of thing. This could be health care, this could be proper nutrition, it can be isolating, and it really can harm the dependent partner. And then we have psychological abuse, and I think we've all seen evidence of that in different relationships. Verbal acts, when someone's constantly putting someone else down or doing anything that they can to make them look bad. So things like just scolding or humiliating, keeping a partner trapped from being able to come and go as they choose, or harming people or things that the partner cares about. So even though they might not be physically hurting the partner, they know how to get to their vulnerable spots and hurt something or someone that they really care about. So some common stressors that lead to physical abuse, and as we know, this is very similar to some of the stressors that can lead to child abuse or other forms of domestic violence. As I mentioned before, isolating a partner from friends and family and any means of social support can make that partner more dependent on the person who's abusing them. So right down to things like counting the miles on the odometer of the car to make sure that they don't go anywhere that they're not supposed to. Pregnancy can cause stress in a family. The idea of having to physically support another child. There could be other anxiety about adding a new member to the family. Some domineering partners don't want a child in the family because they want the dependent partner's attention all on them. And of course, when there's a new member or a new baby in the family, that doesn't work very well. And then economic stress. When a person is so isolated that they don't have any way to earn a living to support themselves or their children, again, the dependence on a violent partner can be how that turns out. So even though they really might like to get away, they don't feel like economically they can, and they don't want to put themselves in a position where they can't support their own children. So substance abuse in terms of partner violence is huge. We know that excessive drug and alcohol use can cause people to really flare. To be someone who's already angry, it can just make it that much worse. So, and it doesn't just increase the risk of someone being a perpetrator, it can increase the risk for someone being a victim. And heavy drug and alcohol use really increases someone's chances of becoming abusive. And then the mental anguish of domestic violence causes many victims to turn to dangerous substances, really just to self-medicate. And then we also know that substance abuse can also contribute to violent behavior. And someone who's already prone to abusing, this can just multiply that urge to abuse, and in some cases make people not even necessarily remember what they've done. So I looked up the ASAM discussion of addiction and partner abuse. And here again, they say that the substance abuse is involved in 40 to 60% of all intimate partner violence. So that's a huge percentage. So we really see that link between substance abuse and partnered violence. Domestic abuse victims are way more likely to drink excessive amounts of alcohol than those in healthy relationships. And very often, the abuse really comes out on a day when someone's using excessively. So maybe not a situation where they might only have one or two drinks. They may be drinking all day and really lose their temper. So it's very frightening for a victim of partner violence.